First of all, I want to take this opportunity to thank the organizers of this nice event for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be here in person to present my work to you. So today I will talk about a joint work with Xiaoming Fu and Pierre Magal, which concerns sharp traveling waves in a hyperbolic cell repulsion model. I guess the motivation for my talk is a cell-cell experiment of Pasquier and collaborators. So basically, it's an experiment where they have grown two different types of cell in a petri dish, and they used some I think it's a genetic mechanism to put a different color on the two cells. I guess a lot of people in this room are much more precise about this technique than I am. And we just wanted to build a model to understand how the repartition of these two types of cells evolves through time in the petri dish. So here you can see in the experiment, at the first we start with a few islets of cells that are scattered across the petri dish. And when time evolves, the cells begin to grow, and they occupy more and more space. And after 3 days, the cells have already occupied the whole petri dish, and you can see a clear segregation between the red and the green cells, and this continues to evolve in a way in the following days. But you can see that in this case, the cells do not really mix. They keep remain segregated in the petri dish until the end of the experiment. So we wanted a model that allows to keep this segregation property. And another thing in this experiment, I mean, an important property is that the cells do not really move by themselves. They merely react to the presence of one another. So in a way, they evolve according to a gradient which is generated by their neighbors. Okay. So to model the evolution of the population of cells in the petri dish, first we have to understand, before going to a two-cell model, we have to understand how one cell evolves. And so we use the following cell-cell repulsion model to describe the population of cells in the petri dish. So you can see, so it's in the top. So we have essentially two parts in this model. The population dynamics is on the right-hand side. It's a simple logistic term where cells grow and saturate at a certain level. And the motion of the cell is described in the left-hand side by the differential operator, which is basically motion according. So the cells just follow the gradient of pressure, which is this P constant. And this pressure, we assume that it's so we model this pressure by a diffusion equation, so the second line, which is generated by the cells themselves. So the more there are cells, the more there is pressure. So the more the cells push each other. Okay. So this model is set on a circular domain which represents the petri dish, and because there is no because there is a rigid boundary, we assume that there is no flux for the pressure. So this is the Neumann boundary condition here. And so because of this Neumann boundary condition, and because we investigate a hyperbolic model, so we don't have to impose a boundary condition for the U, basically because the characteristics are trapped in the petri dish by the Neumann boundary condition satisfied by the pressure. I will talk a little bit more precisely later about that. Okay. There is some. So of course, there exists some earlier models which have participated in the construction of our model. So maybe the more one other model that describes this kind of self-generated gradient is a Patlak-Kelsigal model, which dates from the 1950s. So this one. Another celebrated model is the post-medium equation with a KPP source, which was studied by the Pablo Vasquez, and then you can also see the monograph of Vasquez in 2007. So one which may be closer is the paper of in 2006 by Armstrong, Painter, and Sherratt. So they proposed a model for cell-cell adhesion and model so the adhesion between cells by a non-local gradient. So in this case, again, the interaction between cells is not repulsion, but just adhesion. And finally, probably the closest model in the past literature is a model proposed by Ducrot and collaborators, who proposed a quite complicated model with a lot of different dynamics. With in particular a porous medium term and contact inhibition. Okay, so for two species, we can adapt the principle of cells pushing back each other by adding a second line in our equation by describing the behavior of the cells by two equations instead of one. So this is what I'm showing here. So here the population dynamics of the cells is no longer a simple logistic model, but we can incorporate competition between cells, which is described by this is a constant here. And we don't have to assume that the cells react to the gradient pressure to the same way. So we could investigate a case where the sensitivity of the cells to the pressure is different. So, of course, the pressure here has to depend on both population of cells. So here, in this example, I assume that the two types of cells create the same amount of pressure in a way, but this of course could be easily changed. Okay, so and for this two species model is particularly interesting in the case where the two sensitivities are not different but are the same, because we have an easy argument that allows us to prove that the cells stay segregated at all times. And this comes from the characteristics for the model, which are a way to uncouple the spatial dynamics and the population dynamics. I will talk a little bit more precisely about that later. So an illustration is this one. So basically the characteristics allow us to write an equation which is simpler, and it's along a characteristic, the population of stays equal to 0. And so if you start with two segregated initial conditions for the two population of cells, and if you have the same sensitivity to the pressure, then you can prove that at all times the two population of cells stay segregated because basically the characteristic cannot cross. And so the population along one characteristic cannot it has to be equal constant equal to 0. Okay. Okay. So but more than that, what we are able to do is to construct a numerical model for the two species in a Petri dish, and so we can reproduce the dynamics. So numerically, we can reproduce the dynamics of the cell culture experiments by using a numerical scheme. And so we can, for instance, we can investigate several behaviors of the population of cells. We can investigate, for instance, what happens, the difference between what happens if you put just a small initial number of cells in a Petri dish, and you let the time evolve you observe a certain pattern in the equilibrium distribution, and we can can change this initial condition and investigate what happens for the case of a densely seeded initial condition. Of course, the equilibrium distribution is much different, but we can observe that in each case, the population stays segregated. So in a way, we have filled one part of the contract with this model. So to show a little bit the complexity of the interaction between the cells. So here we monitored the evolution of the relative proportion of each species in the cells. So basically, we can measure at each time the total mass of the species 1. Well, of course, it's arbitrary here, species 1 and species 2. And we can compare the evolution of the proportion of the one species in the Petri dish compared to the other. So here the solid lines correspond to the sparsely seeded case, and dashed line correspond to densely seeded case. So sparsely seeded is the top one, and densely seeded is the bottom one. And so we have a way of comparing the evolution of the proportion in the two cases. And so we can see that the relationship is non-trivial. So depending on how you construct your initial condition, you have a very different outcome in the end. And if you begin to play around with the coefficient of the model, you can obtain some different kind of dynamics, where, for instance, the evolution of the proportion of the one species can begins to decrease and increase. So this is the case when we gave a dispersive advantage to the green species and a competitive advantage for the red species, for instance. It means that at the beginning, if you focus on the top graph, at the beginning, the green species begins to spread very, very fast. So the proportion increases drastically, and then in the long run, the competitive advantage of the red species tips the edge towards again in the proportion of the red species. So okay, so this is let's say an example of what we can do. But what I really wanted to present today is a more simple model of the one species in one dimension, and this is one of the cases where we can say something analytical about the behavior of the population. So not numerical, but really something mathematically precise. So this would correspond to the growth of a single islet in the Petri dish, in the far away from the boundary conditions. So far away from the boundary of the Petri dish. So if you run one-dimensional simulations for this model, so for instance, here I present several different times starting from the initial condition, which is this one. So what we observe is the population seems to evolve toward a kind of a profile which is shifting at a constant speed along the axis. And this profile has a particularity, which is that it is relatively smooth behind some threshold. So on the left of this point, the profile of the the kind of wave is relatively smooth, and then it has a very sharp steepness, which numerically could just be that the derivative is increasing drastically. But so as I will show later, it's actually a discontinuity. And the problem we face here is that we are in the presence of the formation of a discontinuity. So we have to find a way of describing the solutions that is sufficiently nice, so sufficiently nice to allow this kind of particular solution with very sharp discontinuity. Okay. So the one-dimensional model follows the same principle as the two-dimensional model for one species. So we have this equation which describes the density of cells. So the density of cells is subject to growth and competition. So growth and saturation is the logistic term on the right. So on the left, we have the spatial behavior of the population of cells, which moves along the gradient pressure, which is created by the cells. And since we are in dimension 1, we can write an explicit formula for the pressure P, which is the convolution with an explicit gradient, which has this shape. So it's a decreasing exponential function. And so, in a way, this gives us a direct relationship a non-local relationship from the population of cells to the pressure gradient. And our notion of solution will take advantage of this fact that P is non-local with respect to U, and because it's a convolution of U with a relatively smooth kernel, we can gain a little bit of smoothness from this kernel. So our notion of solution is the notion of what we call solution integrated along the characteristics. It is probably linked to the notion of entropy solutions that was used by Pertham and Dalibard in a somehow related model without competition. But here, we found it easier to develop this notion of solution. So the idea is that we uncouple the spatial and the population dynamic parts by using characteristic curves. So what are characteristic curves? It's the solution to this differential equation. So the idea is to use an algebraic trick to reduce the left-hand side of the equation to ordinary differential equation. So a set of ordinary differential equations on the real line. So if we introduce this solution to this ordinary differential equation, so this field of equations, then we can interpret the left-hand side of the top equation as the differential of a composition of two functions, and then we can write the local dynamic on a characteristic. We can write the local dynamics of the population of cell on a characteristics independently in a way of the rest of the line. And so what's interesting us in this way of expressing the solution is that we have completely we got rid completely of the spatial derivatives in the equation, and so we don't have to assume any smoothness in the initial condition. Okay, and in particular, this becomes convenient when there is degenerate behavior like jump, like discontinuity in the solution. Okay, so our first result is the well-posedness of the problem when we use this notion of solutions. So by using this notion of solution, we can reconstruct a nice theory for the time-dependent problem starting from initial condition for which we don't have to assume any kind of regularity. So we just assume that the initial condition is L infinity. So it can be, for instance, a discontinuous profile. We don't have a problem with this kind of initial data. And of course, in order to have nice so in order to have nice properties of the solution, we have to impose a kind of forgiving topology on the set of solutions. So here it shows the L1 eta topology. So this is the L1. Basically, it's essentially the same as the locally L1 topology. But this, we still have a norm. So we still work in a bar space. So we can prove the existence of a maximal time for a given initial data, which is unique in a way. We can prove that we preserve the infinity character of the initial data. We have a continuity with respect to time and to the initial data. So it's basically what we require for time-dependent problem. So the nice feature about this model is the existence of discontinuous traveling waves, so profiles that are propagating in a space and which present one jump discontinuity between a set of so the set that is already invaded and the set which is empty of any cell. So we can prove the existence of such a traveling wave, and we have an explicit estimate for the jump size, which depends only on the data of the problem. Okay, and so we can test numerically several things like dependency on the initial steepness. It doesn't seem to depend very much. And when you look at the behavior of the level set, you can see, so the first one is a numerical artifact. It's because of a numerical diffusion. When you look at the 0 level set, you will see that it's a little bit ahead of the other ones. But if you look at the 0.2 and 2/3 level sets, and you can see that they become close, so they collapse, so they become closer and closer to one another, which means that so the discontinuity, there is a discontinuity forming. Because you are going from 2/3 to 0.2 in a very short amount of space. Okay, so I don't know how much time I have. Maybe I can just talk about one thing that I'm particularly that I care particularly about is the exponential behavior of level sets. And basically, when you start from initial data which has a nice behavior near the boundary, then you can actually do some heuristic computation to understand why there is this singularity forming, so this jump discontinuity between something positive and 0. Okay, and the idea is that there are two competing dynamics at the edge of the propagation, which are on the one side the spatial dynamics, so the characteristics are diverging from the edge of the front at some speed, and on the other hand, there is the growth of the population, which looks like an exponential. Okay, and the two can be measured actually. So this. So if you take a level set and you look at what happens when U is below this level set, then you will see that so these two dynamics of the special advance of the front, which is letting some of the population on the left-hand side, and the growth of the population at the front. Okay, so in our model, the divergence of the characteristics is given by a set of ordinary differential equations. So we can measure the divergence between the rightmost characteristic and the other ones. And actually, because the population is 0 on the right-hand side, we can prove that the rightmost characteristic is the fastest, and the other ones are all diverging from the characteristic at a speed which is bounded by by the distance by some constants times the distance to the rightmost characteristic. So this is the typical application of a Ground-Wall inequality, and we can see that by a simple Ground-Wall argument, the distance between the rightmost characteristic and any other one, which is close to it, is at most an exponential, at least at most. And on the other hand, the population is still growing at the edge of the front, like an exponential. So if we just care about this qualitative phenomenon of population accumulated at the front, we can just use an exponential. And if we assume that we take a point which is close to the rightmost characteristic, so maybe I can draw a little picture. So we have the rightmost characteristics, and we have so we take some point, and we know that all along this path, the characteristics coming from a neighborhood of this point are diverging like exponential functions. And so, in particular, the one that is touching this point here is so it comes from a point which is exponentially close to the separatrix at the beginning, and so we can go back actually to the initial data, so to the initial time. We can go back to the initial time by solving the backward problem of characteristics, and we have an estimate like that, like u. So this one. So u of tx when x is close to the propagating front is something like u0. This term, which is like an exponential, and exponential t, which is the growth of the population. So if we know something about the initial data, we know something about what's happening close to the characteristic at any time. And so, so we can write this kind of inequality where, of course, the right-hand side, if this epsilon is chosen sufficiently small, the right-hand side is going to infinity, and so you cannot have an equilibrium of population at the front of propagation. Okay, and maybe I can stop here because the rest is relatively technical. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, thank you very much. My question is about the two species case.
Yes.
Do you have motion of interface in that case? And if yes, under which circumstances?
So we have motion of interface if the competition is biased, of course. So if one of the species is go back to the system. So of course, if there is a difference between K1 and K2, there is no more interface because one of the species can go into the space occupied by the other one and start competing because the characteristics are different.
No, but it's not competition. It's a motion.
It's not competition. This one is dispersion.
Okay.
And if there is competition, there can be a motion of interface far away from the equilibrium if, for some reason, there is a larger population of one of the species. Well, actually, it's a bit complex because if you start with segregated initial data, then you always have some little gap between the two populations. So the interface is something that is not really well defined in a way. What you can study is what you could probably study is the way this kind of separation is moving but I'm afraid it's difficult to write a single equation to describe these dynamics.
Okay, thank you.
Des questions?
So if we look at the aggregations equations, we have something with like what is called patch solutions, where you have solutions that are indicators of certain areas that moves. When you have Newtonian interaction potentials, and so this could be done in more than one dimension. I don't know if this could extend to that, like we could do something in 2D.
So what do you mean?
Well, you have particular solutions that are indicator function of some sets, and then those sets moves. So here you would add just a growth term to this. So you
mean without logistic?
Without logistic thing, you have this type of particular solutions.
Okay.
And they seem to be related to what you are presenting. I'm not sure.
Sure. Yeah.
So maybe I don't know if you have thought about.
We didn't look into this particular property.
Okay.
Maybe it could be a way to do something else.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So I was wondering, what about like in some microbial populations at the front, stochastic dynamics seem to be very important. So would this change any of these results? Do you have any intuition on this, if you would include like noisy wave edges?
So it depends exactly how we include stochasticity in the front. Of course, I guess if you have Brownian motion of the cells, then it should be closer to a kind of a KPP type equations. We do have a non-joint project for this. So we add a small Laplacian to the equation. So it's still deterministic, but in a way we allow for some motion of the cells. And so when we make this vanish, hopefully we obtain the same kind of equation. If you use a stochastic processes, then it's really away from my area of expertise, but it's probably also something very interesting to study. Thank you.